Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dancing with Damage. I'm Ian, your resident philosopher.
And I'm Abby, your resident author.
And today we talk about food centers in the theory of the social blueprint, as seen here. Very fun book. And if you are following along in this very fun book, we are talking a bit about chapter 33. I think the title is The Bee and the Fly, and that's the story of that chapter. Last episode, Abby, we talked a bit about exercise centers, communal spaces to exercise for people to get monetary compensation in order to reduce the amount of healthcare spending that a nation had to do. But I want to take a second, Abby, and sort of rewind the tape. Let's rewind. Yeah, that's what a rewind sounds like, right?
Have any of you had VHSs as well? Let us know in the comments. That was a big part of my childhood, and I presume yours.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was a lot of rewinding you had to do. It's not like a DVD or streaming service where you can just watch on repeat with no effort. You had to work for your movies.
Very true. So it's been some time since we sort of went back to the original philosophy of damage, because all of this starts at that seed. All the branches grow from that trunk. And so, Abby, I want to just do a little recap. How would you start that recap?
Okay. So remember, everything we talk about in our philosophy from this point on and a few episodes back is in an ideal world in the future when damage has already been reduced. So we're taking it with a grain of salt or a little mound of salt, and we're sort of saying, not would this apply today, but could this work in the future? And would it be a good idea if people would agree to it? Okay. So the basic premise of our theory is that damage is a concept that Ian came up with along with the help of his dad.
That is right. This specific concept comes from that Genesis, and it is a philosophy about a force in each human that is a self-destructive, hidden desire. As you'll recall, Abby, we talked about in the first couple episodes how if you look around carefully at people in developed countries who have the ability and the resources and stated intention to do better for themselves, for example, not spending so much on certain things or not spending time with certain people, or who knows, whatever they're trying to accomplish in their lives, seem to self-sabotage and get in their own way and end up leading lives that are less fulfilling and ultimately negatively reduce their quality of life and the quality of life of people around them. Because up till now, what Abby and I have heard, and probably you've heard if you try and find an explanation for why this occurs, is going to be things like people don't have sufficient resources or education or things like that. But in the age of unlimited education and in an age where there are plenty of resources, and again, we're specifically and mainly talking about sort of middle-class people who ought to be doing a lot better for themselves and for others, just keep getting in their own way. And so we call that force damage. Then we moved on to looking at how damage is caused by a lack of love specifically in the subconscious. Formative years, of course, Abby, those years would be
approximately 0 to 5.
There you go. Short and sweet.
Yeah.
And in the subconscious, those 6 emotions, dueling like fencers.
It'd be fun if we had tiny foam swords and we could duel. Then we couldn't hurt each other, so it would just be a good time. I like low stakes or no stakes activities where you can have fun, you don't worry about hurting somebody. So foam swords, I think, would be at my level of athleticism.
That would be a very good duel. It'd be a long duel because, I mean, the point of a duel is to like do in the other person, right?
Or make them drop their sword.
That's right.
But it'd be hard if there were foam swords. You don't have a lot of momentum.
No, it would take a while. I think hunger would be the biggest adversary. But anyway, so the 6 true emotions, chief among them being guilt coming into the fray when there's an injection of hate instead of love into the parent-child bond, and guilt being a force of self-atonement and self-sabotage taking root in the self-conscious and growing out with its tendrils throughout an adult's whole life. And from there, we talked a bit about technology and unmoderated technology sort of being a culprit.
Yep. And an important caveat to that is that damage is not your fault. It is not your parents' fault. It is sort of something that has evolved with humans and has sort of snowballed throughout generations as small things or small areas where love isn't fully present. If there's no love, there's automatically hate. It's an all or nothing situation. Oh, I thought you were pointing at things.
No, I was saying like it's either
lasers?
this away or that away.
Yeah. So if there's any room, if it's only 99% love, that immediately allows for 1% hate. And it doesn't mean someone is actively always being mean. It can just be they're not doing enough good. So again, it's very important to know it's not your fault. It's not your parents' fault. There's no blame. But it is important that we fix it. So moving forward, humanity can be better.
That's right. And one of the reasons I wanted to circle back to the start, that was good. Eh? Really helps understand.
Now you know what we're talking about. This is not the person you're looking for. You know the social blueprint. Ooh.
Wait, that reference almost escaped you, eh? That was a close call. So that's fine. We all got there.
I couldn't talk about droids, so I was trying to think of how to reword it.
Can't talk about droids? Apparently we're not allowed to talk about droids. Yikes. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about is we gave quite a few examples of damage where the user of the damaged behavior is negatively impacted primarily. A great example, a person who wants to be in shape, knows how to be in good shape, has the resources to be in good shape, and is not in good shape. Bad BMI, bad joints, bad organ systems because of eating and sedentary lifestyle. And that's very common in Canada, for example. And a really clear-cut example of damage because it's just a universal desire or a universal resolution to improve our health, and yet so few people are able to do it. But the people who are not able to do it are not stupid people. They're able to work well at their jobs and do all sorts of good things. It's just in this one section of their lives, they seem crippled. And that's sort of the proof that damage exists. And by the way, we don't ask you to believe us at face value. What we want you to do is, when Abby and I put forward an argument, we don't want you to believe us just because we said it. We would much prefer people look around and say, hey, that does pass the sniff test. That does resonate with our human experience here.
Yeah, just take what we're saying and take a second before you make a judgment and just think, does this make sense? Do I have life experience or examples that agree or counter this argument, and why? Just think about it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, if someone asks me if I like grilled cheese, yes, I might have to make some grilled cheese and enjoy all of it before I can decide that I do like it. So do that. This is the grilled cheese. Just enjoy it and then decide if you like it.
That's right. Think about if you know somebody who is always getting into bad relationships despite everyone in their life circle telling them this is a bad relationship. Or think about if you know someone who can't stop spending money on luxury items and then at the end of the day don't have enough to make ends meet and more important things. It's sort of like if you looked at a window and you saw, I guess you're in the desert, and you see these tumbleweeds blowing. Got a lot of sound effects today.
You are Mr. Sound Effect. It kind of reminds me of the movie Police Academy. There's one character whose pretty much whole bit is doing sound effects for the entire time.
Oh.
He's my favorite person. So he's very talented.
Am I your favorite person?
By default, yes.
Hooray. Acclamation. Claim victory. It's like if you looked out your window and you saw tumbleweeds sort of blowing through the desert. You might not feel the wind necessarily, but you would know it was there because you could see the effects of it. So that's sort of true about damage because it's hard to feel in our own lives, but it's easy to see in other lives. And so the whole point of this series is for us to step out of the desert dwelling you're in so you can be attuned to damage, and that's going to be the first domino to kick off the rest of the social theory. But all this to say is if you pick up the book, it's much more succinctly explained there. Is this a webisode?
I don't know. I think we're just chatting. This is Ian and Abby. This is just us. If you talk to us in real life, we're the same. We love our theory and we want to help people. And we don't like that a lot of marketing nowadays is spend all this money, subscribe to this thing, join this course, and you'll unlock the secrets to the universe in 50 easy steps or whatever. I don't like that. And we don't like that. And we think as humans, if we think we actually found a solution to help people, it should just go to people. So this right now is us just talking about the book and our theory in a free way. We are not charging you any money. There's no subscription. I think YouTube makes you watch ads occasionally if we have enough views to ever warrant ads on our videos, but for right now, it's just absolutely free. So that's what we want. We just want you to hear our theory and to see if it makes sense to you, and hopefully to improve your own life using it. That is the goal. That's the whole goal.
That's right. Because when I was growing up with my dad around, and this is all sort of original theory that, as far as I know, you can't get anywhere else. So that's sort of what started all this, was the idea that there's an expression from the Bible, Abby and I aren't what you'd call religious, but we know a bit about the Bible because we read it sometimes. It's actually a pretty good book.
There's good advice. So we look at religious texts, and instead of taking them as weird as it sounds, we don't look at them as a religious text. We look at it sort of as a practical piece of literature, and we say, okay, practically in our lives, sort of like what we're asking you to do here, does this make sense to me today? What does this mean to me? What's the metaphor here? And I gotta say, Jesus was funny, and he made fun of some people. And there are some bits in the Bible that have us howling because it's some savage burns in there.
That's right. You heard it here first, folks. The New Testament is a comedy. It's coming to theaters near you. No, Abby's right. We've really focused on the New Testament when Abby and I were just kind of reading the Bible together to kind of get a feel for it. The Old Testament made no sense to me, and it has a lot of fire and brimstone, a lot of condemnation. If you read the New Testament, that's just basically where Jesus is walking around. They're laying down some social principles that are, I think, pretty good. One of them is, if you have a candle, you don't put it under a bushel.
It'll set on fire.
Yeah, I think he might have been going for like a fire marshal standpoint, but the idea was, if you think you have a good idea, you should try and transmit it. So that's all we're trying to do. And we're really glad if you want to be a part of it. And that's what Abby and I like doing.
Yeah. And as a random, I want your opinion on this. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. This is my opinion. Reading the Old Testament versus the New Testament, the concept of God changes dramatically. It goes from, if you're even a little bit bad, a poison tree can never bear fruit. If you ever do one bad thing in your life, there's no redemption. All of a sudden, to on your deathbed, you could be a bad person, but just be like, you know what, I'm sorry. And then all of a sudden you go to heaven. Gotta pick a lane. I can't get over the lane switching. It's not cohesive to me. And I think this is why there are so many subsects of Christianity, because you have to sort of decide which God is the real God based on all the stories.
True. And Abby tried the lane switching thing when she was driving once. It also did not work for her. So
That's savage.
Thumbs down.
Wait, are you saying I can't drive?
I'm just saying you were exploring the lanes to see where heaven might be, and you almost found it.
That's savage. No, I'm a very safe driver.
Yikes.
I annoy him because I drive the speed limit. I'm one of those people. I know. I probably annoyed many of you, and I'm mostly sorry, but at the same time, it's the limit. It's what the law says. I'm very law abiding. So if it's the limit, that is what I'm driving. So you can be mad at me, but I'm not breaking any laws.
So have fun.
Going 90.
Have fun arresting her. So anyway, all this to say, we're not very religious in terms of believing in the concept of heaven and hell and God, but we do like some of the good sociology you can find in there. Anyway, what I was getting at is, we never really talked about sociopaths. We're going to touch on it very, very briefly today. I think probably after we finish the episodes that summarize the chapters of the book, Abby and I are going to be doing more of like a free-for-all in terms of what we talk about on this show. It's going to be more about topical events, sort of political happenings,
or just opinions and thoughts about things in the world. There's a lot of topics you can cover and sort of look at through the lens of the social blueprint and our theory. So I think it'll be fun. It'll kind of be like a philosophy podcast.
Yeah, basically. Like, I took some physics classes in my grade 10 year, not to brag or anything, but there was a physics class. And what?
You're how old?
I don't. 36. Why? Do they not have physics out?
How many decades ago are you referencing? Where is this knowledge from?
Deep down the well of one of my lobes, which was probably better sealed off. Anyway, in physics, you can have these equations, right? So Newton was like, hey, force equals mass times acceleration. And I know there might not be a God, but Lord, I hope that's what it is. Because I think that's right. I think force equals, mass times acceleration. That's right. And I don't know if Newton said it, but he is the guy that they talked about a lot. So let's assume he said it.
He had the apple, so.
So I don't know. He did a lot of equations. Basically, he did the three main laws, like every force has an equal and opposite reaction, and an object in motion will stay in motion unless you like kick it off a cliff, or I don't know, whatever his laws were. So the point is, the social blueprint, if you delve into it, is like an equation, basically saying human nature is like this. I like to think of it as kind of a unified theory of human nature in terms of why people do what they do within certain margins of error.
Yep.
And then later on, we're going to plug in variables and different examples into the formula so you can hear how we would solve an issue that is going on in the world that seems difficult to solve. At least it'll be fresh.
Yeah, or at least just talking about how we view the issue. It'll just be a take. And you know what? I enjoy watching people on the internet talk about different topics from their perspective. I find that it's good to look at lots of perspectives because some news is unbiased and some news is through a lens of usually a political viewpoint. So sometimes the facts aren't presented in a fulsome manner. Sometimes things are omitted or described in a certain way that indicate, what's an example of a very short scenario that from different perspectives looks very, very different?
Well, recently there was that, so we're shooting this is it March?
It is March.
I tricked myself. March 2026. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, someone was shot in America in what are called, or still are called, the ICE immigration. I think it's Immigrations and Customs Enforcement.
That sounds right.
I don't know what ICE stands for, but anyway, it's basically immigration police. Someone was shot in an interaction with them. And then from one political party's sort of
viewpoint
or talking points, the person who was shot was the instigator and was at fault. And then from other perspectives, it was the shooter who was at fault. So maybe that's an example?
I was thinking something more lighthearted. Like, I don't even know what to say to that. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fair. The news can be very biased. Okay, how about this as an example? There's a lot of scams and schemes and people trying to take your money who don't deserve your money. I really hate that people, as a solution to financial disparity, attack other people who are also financially not secure. I think that's really terribly wrong. I mean, stealing is never the answer. So, as an example, I saw a news story covering a person who said someone stole their banking information, and their perspective was that they did nothing wrong. They gave no one any information. They just answered a phone call, confirmed it was them, hung up, called their bank, and someone had stolen money, and now they were fighting their bank to get the money back. And I thought, man, that's so scary. You can answer a call, and all you have to do is confirm your identity. You don't give them any answers. They just have your voice. Is that enough to steal the money? And it scared me. But then later on, there was an article from the bank's perspective, and it turned out that they were given a one-time passcode. And that one-time passcode was given to the scammer, and that gave them access to the banking information. So there was another layer. So from one perspective, they omitted some information that made it sound like they were completely victimized. And from another perspective, they were absolutely still victimized and it should not have happened, but they were at least partially at fault, be it through ignorance, of losing some of their money. And that's why the bank wasn't very forthcoming with returning the funds, because they said, well, you violated our policy. And then it gets into the nitty gritty. But that was more of the level. But I mean, these are all things that are worth talking about in society. These are all problems that we have to deal with. These are things that are happening in our world. And unfortunately, ignoring them is not going to solve anything. And I wonder if that should bring us to the topic of today, because I almost think we should call this episode something else.
We're going to have lots of time. We're going to have lots of time to talk about chapter 33, poor chapter 33. But just want to very briefly, Abby talks about scammers. And I just wanted to, I guess I'll just give you a foreshadowing, is that the theory of damage does talk about sabotage in our own lives, but it will also come to explain sort of what Abby's talking about, which you call a sociopath, someone who appears to feel no anxiety or guilt when harming other people. Most humans seem to have a barrier between doing wrong to others and not doing wrong to others, but the sociopath seems to not have that conscious guilt. We're still going to talk about how that sociopath has a large amount of subconscious guilt going on, even if they're not presenting with conscious guilt, because as we're going to see, or maybe we've already talked about it, but we talk about it more, how important it is for a human to have positive relationships.
Yeah.
So no person is an island. And there's no one really more isolated than the sociopath. It's just impossible for that person to make meaningful human connections. And so their soul is in grave danger. And when we say soul, of course, we mean how close they are to fulfilling the purpose of life, which evolution gave us, et cetera, et cetera. So I never really said that before, Abby, but I wanted to say that now just in case people are like, hey, damage. What about sociopaths? It does explain it.
Yeah, there's different types of damage, which we haven't gotten into, and it presents differently in different people. And it's actually kind of fun in a really sad way, because you know how in Harry Potter, different character and personality traits make you more likely to be in one of the Hogwarts houses, and each house has sort of a different strength area and maybe possibly a different weakness, or no weakness, but just a different strength, something that you are better at. Well, unfortunately, damage, how you obtain damage and what kind of damage you obtain, which we will get into, presents differently and makes you more likely to commit different damaged behaviors. So some people, based on their upbringing, are more likely to be self-destructive, whereas other people are more likely to damage other people. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. It's sort of like a quiz in Cosmo back when, is that still a magazine? I don't know. It was when I was a kid, but it's sort of like one of those flow charts. Follow along and answer the questions to see if you're a fall or a winter, a spring or a summer in your color palette or something. But anyway, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. There'll be lots of time. The topic behind me today is dig in. And
just no transition.
Zero segue. We don't have time for it. We're lean. We are a lean program. Anyway, so in terms of what comes next in terms of healing society, we're in Act 3, and this is after the steps before have hopefully been completed successfully, or similar steps. You know, we appreciate that things may, if this path is the path that's chosen by certain societies, it may deviate slightly, but we envision the next step being what we're thinking of as food centers. And so because eating is such an important and universal priority, eating healthily, Abby, what would you describe a food center as that sort of already has some precedence in certain areas of our lives, but is not very prominent yet?
So this is, again, very far in the future for people who will be very different from us. So just take that in. Lens of hypothetical. You're with me? Okay. So a food center, picture a cafeteria in a university or a really big food hall, maybe something like an airport. And inside there are chefs and they make different foods, but this would be sort of paid for by the government. I know everything's paid for by the government in our philosophy, but again, we already subsidize food quite a bit in Canada specifically. A lot of fruits and vegetables aren't taxed, and there's centers that provide food and items, but that's usually very heavily based on what people donate and what grocery stores are willing to donate themselves, which are usually non-perishables, which are not always the healthiest. So in our ideal world, there would be these basically dining halls, like on a military base, everyone goes to eat at the dining hall. And there are chefs who are well-versed in things like allergies and food safety. So you could go in every day, all 3 meals a day, and you could just grab food that is healthy. They only use healthy foods. They make diverse foods. They are able to cater to different dietary restrictions, which is very important because I think more often than not, when you talk to people, there is some dietary restriction that they're living with, either for medical reasons or for lifestyle purposes. So it's important to consider. And a lot of people nowadays, especially young people, are not cooking because they don't have the skills according to themselves and they don't have time. We're so busy. We're running out of time. And if we make the time to cook the meals, we don't always have the time to eat with our families. And eating as a family unit is kind of lost. And I did it growing up, and I know, Ian, you did it growing up, and it was such an important time in the day where there at that time was no technology to put away, but you'd put away your phones and you'd all sit at the table and you'd talk like humans to each other and ask about how their day is going, about the struggles, their accomplishments, their victories. And you'd sort of bond over a meal. And that's such a human thing. And it goes back so many centuries of humans bonding over food. It's such a typical human thing. It would be like if you told aliens about humans, one of the top 10 would be the importance of food.
And how we sit down together and say, hey, how were your victories today?
Well, you know.
And the other person said, I was very victorious. Here are my victories. What about your victories? I just love that idea. Abby's very positive. I mean, she has a lot of victories. I think that's the issue, is I am unvictorious.
No, you're wonderful.
Yes. I cut you off. Yes, aliens would learn about this, yes.
I guess my point is, if there was an option, you can still make your own food, but if there was an option and you can get a meal any time of day that is healthy, and the idea is you don't have to take the time to go shopping, you don't have to take the time to cook it, you can, but you don't have to, and you sit down with your friends, your family, your neighbors, and it would sort of force you to reintegrate yourself into society and spend that time, instead of being on your phone, be able to talk to other people and bond and make those memories and have those connections and enjoy the act of eating, because eating can be so transformative and is so integral in several religions and cultures as a very spiritual experience. And we're losing that as a society, and we don't want that.
It's a strong case. 3 things. Number 1, a pack of lions goes to take down a mighty wildebeest.
What did the wildebeest do wrong? I thought you were going to go for the gazelle, and then you're just like, nope, wildebeest.
The wildebeest is more delicious and looks stranger. So the lions will go for it first. It just has a weird face. I don't know. So, but it's usually got a goatee as well. A very nefarious creature.
Just insulting the wildebeest. It's not here to defend itself.
No, thank God. Those things seem spooky.
Unhinged.
Yeah, don't look at dead in the eye. So a pride of lions go to take down a wildebeest, but one of the lions says, I don't want to be part of your crew. I don't want to be part of this group. I'm just going to go get my own meal. The remaining pride take down the wildebeest. Nom, nom, nom. Delicious, delicious wildebeest. There's no problems. They kill it easily and quickly. They eat it. It's delicious. The solo lion goes off on their own, tries to take down an ostrich, a little smaller, right? He's not feeding so many, just one lion. Ostrich kicks this poor lion in the head, runs off.
This is not in the book, so I'm learning with you.
The point is, if an activity is something that everyone has to do in equal measure, it does make sense to streamline the process and make it more efficient through a numerical advantage. And so right now, everyone, well, typically in developed countries, the traditional model is each family unit is like the lion going after the ostrich. And we just go to the grocery store, pick up our own groceries or order it in, cook it ourselves, whatever you'd want to say or do. But so many families are getting kicked in the head by the ostrich because of damage. The food is more expensive when it's bought in small quantities like that. It tends to be more unhealthy on average because a lot of families don't have the time. Processed food and sugary foods are always easier to eat and serve to your kids.
Faster to cook
than healthy food. That's just sort of law of the jungle. Vegetables, welcome to fiber. It's not that good. You need some time and expertise to cook it right. And so we want to be less like the ostrich lion and more like the wildebeest, who didn't get kicked in the head and was able to enjoy a meal with all the other lions. Number 2.
The wildebeest didn't get kicked in the head?
Or the lions didn't get kicked in the head by the wildebeest.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That makes a lot more sense. No one was harmed in the making of that wildebeest.
Except the wildebeest.
Well, whoops. Number 2. Abby and I were considering sort of things paid for by the state in the social blueprint. And although there's some contention about what the state should pay for, and we're going to talk about that more, but really in things where each human sort of requires, by and large, the same amount of calories, for example, a day. By and large, each human requires the same amount of calories. It makes sense to make it a universal state process. It's so much more efficient. And the exercise centers we were talking about the other day, each human must, in order to live a good quality of life, burn sort of within a similar range, the same amount of calories. So exercise centers make sense to be paid for by the state. Food centers make sense to be paid for by the state. And the third thing is, even if you don't agree with the economics of that everyone should contribute to a universal need, the reality is the cost of not doing it is so prohibitively high that developed countries in this day and age, it's not sustainable to continue on the model of everybody sort of
fending for themselves.
Like the ostrich line. Too many people are getting kicked in the head by diet, which is a tricky thing to manage when damage and solo endeavors like that lion are introduced. So there's a lot of good reasons for the food center. And Abby, what would the pillars at play be? Because in Acts 3, we always have pillars of the bridge of goodness at play. And what are they?
First, two things that are not pillars at play.
Oh.
Well, you didn't say them.
Oh.
So the first is, at this stage, based on our plan, we would have cut back on the cost of healthcare. So even if taxes did not change, the amount of money saved in healthcare costs at this point would more than cover the cost of food, because the government already subsidizes so much food and it's so much cheaper to buy in bulk and cook in bulk. We'd still be saving money overall in the plan. The second thing is, we didn't mention that it reduces food waste and environmental impact. So that's something we do mention in the book, is that not only does it bring people together, does it reduce isolation, it reduces poor buying habits, poor eating habits, it gives you more time to spend with loved ones and do meaningful things, but also for the environment, it has a hugely positive impact that there aren't as many trucks going from place to place. All the food is mostly going to one place, and there's one set of people making food. And because they're buying in bulk for a set number of people, approximately, it's so much easier because they can cook more efficiently. And overall, there's less waste, because you can't look me in the eyes and tell me that you haven't bought broccoli, carrots, grapes, and apples, and at least like a fifth of that ended up going bad before you could eat it. And we're lucky. We have chickens that we can share our foods with if we don't get to them. But the idea would be you wouldn't have to do that. You just buy the chickens their own treats. So overall, you would save a lot. The global impact would be phenomenal. So any habit should encourage healthier habits.
Wait, before you do the pillars of play, I want to talk about Todd.
Who is Todd?
Who's Todd?
Who's Todd?
Todd is a fellow. And
You're
Todd,
kidding.
Yes. And he has some kids.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd wakes up and he bundles his kids into their clothes.
You're kidding.
And off they trot. He and his two kids go up to the food center in our scenario. And there's a food center within walking distance of neighborhoods. And so off they go, getting some good steps in.
That's super healthy.
He's got his briefcase. They've got their school bags. They find their usual spot in the food center. And there's kind of different time slots for people doing different things. So they have a seat. Oh, they see, today they're serving for breakfast delicious eggs and some porridge and some fruit. Oh, that looks nice. They like that. And there's many other options, but that's all that Todd sees. And they trundle up to the line and they are able to, hello, chefs. Chefs say, hello. They say that. And onto their plates go the delicious food, much as they want or as little as they want. That's fine. Sit down, eat. Young Teddy says, Papa, I want Fruit Loops for breakfast. And they don't serve them there. That's not very healthy. So they don't have them. And young Tristina.
Everyone's name has to start with a T because of last episode. Just go back and watch it. Thog and Tanya and Timothy, I think.
Young Tristina says, I want some soda pop. Says Todd. Too bad. They don't got it here. Your options are
They don't got it?
Todd is a straight talker.
Okay.
Anyway, they finish up the meals. They've avoided unhealthy meals. Todd's super happy. He doesn't have to do the dishes. He didn't have to plan this meal. There was some in his taxes, but that's fine because he's happy to look at his kids and they're not, overweight. This is great.
They're healthy.
They're healthy. They're healthy, and they got to sit next to their neighbor's kid, so they were talking and throwing porridge at each other. Hopefully not. And they've cleaned that up. Then it's time to go. Up. They all leave from the same place. Todd heads off to work, and wherever he goes, maybe the bus stops by the food center to get Tristina and Teddy. You were surprised I remember their names.
I'm surprised you made up their names.
I'm surprised I remember their names. And off they go. And I just wanted to do that, Abby, because, sometimes it can be hard to envision how these things would work. But I think in Act 3, I'm going to try and do a T scenario for each one.
Oh, so we have to stay with the letter T? We can't pick different letters?
I think we have to pick different ones because I literally will not be able to think of new T names.
I don't know is there a human named Tristina? Is that a name any human has ever, it's a cool name, but has any human ever been named that? Sound off in the comments if Ian just made that up or if that's a name people might have. I've decided to do the Pillars at Play. I'm going to reference the actual book to make sure we don't miss any. Because as you know, despite having written it, when we were writing it, we had the list next to us. And we would go through each one and say, okay, does this make sense? So we had a reference point. So I'm allowed to reference this. I wrote it, so I'm allowed to look at it.
Pillars at Play.
Okay.
Pillars at
Any
Play.
policy should prevent isolation. Great one. Policy increases individual social value by creating quality work. People who are chefs, people who are sanitary specialists who make sure everything is to code, different staff to help maintain the center, washing dishes, making sure the tables are clean. Maybe someone to help coordinate where people are sitting or help people find a spot to sit if it's really busy. Damaged people are denied the power to injure. I would rather pay taxes and be able to know exactly where the money is going. And I think in a lot of countries, there's a lot of stress nowadays and some contention because you pay so much in taxes and you can't really see the value of that. And I know every party, there's always complaints about, why am I paying 50% of anything I make over X amount of money, but I'm not getting any benefit from that? So it would be nice to have a very tangible thing you could use every day.
So I like what she's saying. These kind of policies would be results that everyone could see, everyone who's paying taxes could see, and not just certain demographics.
Yeah, so it's not increasing tax dollars, it's reallocating tax dollars. We've already established some things because this is over time. These are long-term policies that in the long run have a benefit. If they're implemented, science stands behind us on that. So if previous policies were implemented, there should be a decrease in need of spending of tax dollars. Then we have more than enough funding to pay for this and then some, which is nice. So denying people power to injure so they don't have the ability to buy foods that are not healthy. It's nice to be able to go and know, okay, I'm eating something healthy. I don't have to worry about what's in this. It's healthy. And then the last one is any policy should make healthy behavior easier to achieve. I think we've already covered that.
No dishes, best wishes.
How long were you working on that?
Not long enough because I should have. I wish for no dish. I'll work on it. But that is a good summary of the food centers. So in the next episode, we will talk about more lifestyle changes. But thanks for tuning in to Dancing with Damage.
Hope you have a great day.